Hey, you want to hear a funny story about budgeting or lack of budgeting?
Yes.
Okay, so disclaimer. This story is not a knock against my mother.
Okay.
So my mom and the kids have a tradition. Every year my mom takes them to do their Christmas shopping at Tuesday morning.
Okay.
Super random place. And they always do so very well. Like they walk around and really just kind of like pick out little things that they think that I would like and Randy would like. I gave my mom, so we have our cash budget for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave my mom my card and was like, I mean, there should be plenty of money on here, like probably $350. And she came back and was frazzled. And my kids are good. Like, I know everybody says that about their kids, but like my kids are really good. They're not wild. They're not loud. They're usually very calm and collected. And they went insane. She said each one of them got their carts and they were just like zooming through the aisles and like throwing stuff in the basket and let's shop for our cousin and let's shop for, everybody. But then they couldn't find the things that they actually wanted. So they went to Target and the same thing happened. So they get home and I'm like, cool, how much was everything? She goes, oh gosh, like, I don't know, $250, $275. I was like, what? She goes, yeah, your card's out of money. I had to even pay a little bit extra. And I was like, WTF? Like, what the hell did y'all buy? Dude, Xbox gift cards, $25. Walker bought himself a couple of things, freaking like multiple sweaters and hoodies for KK. They went to town and I was super, I was like, she goes, I know, I did really bad this year. She goes, Weston his nose started bleeding for some reason. And then his sugars went low. So all the alarms were going off. So I just was like, just put it on the thing and we'll cash it all out.
I'm Josh Sigman, and I'm a mortgage lender. I'm also a geek for money, not just earning it and saving it, but literally everything about it. I love that money has rules. It has its truths. I love investment strategies, and I love making money work for us. For so many, money is emotional. For me, it's logical, like a puzzle. My passion is also helping others with their money. I love looking at people's finances, dissecting their puzzle, and rebuilding with strategy and purpose, and I'm really good at it. I'm making this podcast about my money strategies, not the things that are written in books or sold in programs. It's a podcast outlining the lessons I've learned and used for the past 15 years. These strategies help me and those who use them save more, give more, create wealth, and retire early. Let me teach you how to build your net worth. You ready? Welcome to Sigman Sense. All right, so we're going to talk about money again.
That's
for
weird.
Episode 80.
What a weird topic.
40, money.
Where'd that come from?
We've had a couple, welcome back guys. Had a couple questions over and over about 401K's, right?
Yeah.
So, there's a couple questions that kind of spin together and we'll do pieces of it today and then a different time as well. But really the question is like, what is a 401k? How do you use your 401k? What's in a 401k? How do you invest in a 401k? And I see a lot of problems with it, so for a lot of people might have worked at a company for a couple of years and they had a 401k. I see when I do mortgages, I see a lot of abandoned 401ks, which basically means like you had a 401k and then you left and the company said, here, this thing is growing well or not without you forever. And you don't look at it and you don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
I've talked to people who, when a spouse died, they end up finding out that there's a 401k out there that the spouse didn't even know about, right? Just by getting paperwork and things like that. So the reality of it is that there's big pros to 401ks and there's some cons too. It's sometimes out of sight, out of mind is a bad thing. Sometimes out of sight, out of mind is a good thing, right? So
yeah,
I think that's what we should talk about today, especially as we come into this new year and people have the opportunity to, start contributing back. Maybe somebody's listening that has a salary and doesn't ever utilize the 401k at their company. And maybe this will be a reminder of, hey, why don't you go ahead and take a look at your returns last year, because it was probably really good. And if it wasn't, you weren't invested well.
Yeah.
It's just a good time of year to dive back into that piece. So I think the best place to start is like, what can you contribute? And what is it? And the basic answer is that a 401k is for salaried people. It's a company created entity that basically you can contribute pre-tax dollars. So you're going to take money out of your paycheck before you get it. So because you never laid hands on it this year, you don't have to pay taxes on it this year. So that's what I mean by pre-tax dollars. Mm-hmm. And it's going to grow depending on the allocation that you choose within the 401k. So,
and I think that was something that I was really surprised by when I set mine up. Mm-hmm. Like, I got to do what?
Yeah,
like,
you have to pick something, right?
I thought you just
put it in the 401k.
Put the money in there, yeah.
Yeah, no, so you can literally put money into 401k that sits in cash, which isn't going to grow for you, right? So you got to select some accounts within whatever your company's umbrella chose within their 401k.
Right.
And then it's going to grow for a period of time. You're typically not supposed to take money out of any kind of pre-taxed investments until you're 59 and a half. So this is for retirement. There are a couple exceptions where you can get money out before then, like you could take money out for a first-time home buyer to buy a house. But otherwise, if you take money out before you're 59 and a half, you're going to be penalized on it and pay taxes on it. But you can't access it technically.
So if you use it for a down payment on a house, do the penalties go away?
For first-time home buyers, yeah.
Really?
Can use it. Yeah, there is no penalty. You pay taxes on it.
You pay taxes on it.
Because it was never taxed before, right? But the gist that I want people to understand is you never pay taxes on it up front. So it's going to grow. So in theory, like if you think of $1,000, right? If I don't take 33% taxes out, it's a full $1,000. It gets to grow for me till 59 and a half. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have a bigger pile at the end is the theory.
Yeah.
And then you're going to pay tax on it. But the reason why the government's happy with that is, hey, you have more money to pay tax on eventually because you're going to pay the piper eventually.
Eventually.
Right? Eventually, right.
Okay.
So then when you do withdraw it, 59 and a half, and you that's the earliest you can get into it. But whether you're 65 or 72 or whatever, you're going to be able to withdraw that money. And as you withdraw that money, you pay taxes on it at that time, which in theory is when your tax bracket will be lower. Because you're not earning money anymore. So,
you're not at 59 and a half though.
Well, 65 or whatever, right?
I mean, that's just
right. So the idea is that you're going to be retired, you're going to be on a fixed income, whether Social Security or whatever else. This is the thought behind creating these is now you're going to be taxed at a lower amount, but you have more money to dip into. And the government's happy with that because you're not going to suck on the tit of the government if you have money to live off of, right? Is that okay to say?
It's just create a very vivid visual in my head.
I feel like it's a very accurate visual, right?
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Like a suckling pig. So that's kind of the gist of what a 401k is, right? Now, what's interesting is that you also have options within the 401k to identify it as you can use Roth IRAs within your 401ks, right?
Oh.
So you can actually choose to pay taxes now, which is a big deal. Pay tax up front, so it grows tax-free forever within it. You have that option with a lot of companies nowadays, which is, in my opinion, a better option. So remember, a tax deferred means I don't pay tax today, so I don't get taxed on it this year. It's going to grow, and then I'll pay tax in the future. A Roth IRA is something where you pay taxes this year, but as it grows to whatever it's going to be, you never pay tax on the money again, which is a big deal. So,
but a Roth is not inside of the 401k.
It can be. Yeah. In fact, at our company, you can get a Roth.
Oh, yes. Okay. I don't think that's how mine's set up.
You should do that. I'm glad we're talking.
Well, maybe it is. I'm glad you're talking. You just never know.
So the idea. So I know that's a lot to stomach if you're not kind of familiar with it, and maybe I did a good job of explaining it. Maybe I didn't. But here's the gist of it. Okay. I think this year, $19,500 is how much an individual employee can contribute to a 401k. Okay. On top of that,
there's max amounts.
Right. One of the other benefits of 401ks at a lot of companies, not all companies, is a lot of companies will match the contributions because they're going to try and help out their employees. It's an extra benefit, right? So what a company might do is they might say, hey, I'll match 6% or 3% or 2% of whatever you contribute up to, a maximum. Every company will change that number of earnings. Like maybe they'll contribute 2% up to 100,000, or maybe it's 6% up to 150.
Up to 150
of your earnings. Right.
Okay.
And they'll match it literally dollar for dollar. But so basically what that math comes out to is maybe you'll get another 8,000 to 9,000 on top of your 19,500.
So the max doesn't, match doesn't include the Wait.
You're saying that wrong.
Yes.
Your contributions are separate.
Separate.
So up to 19,500.
If they match
and the
it,
company's going to give you extra money.
You can still go higher.
Right.
Than
So
that.
let's just say that for easy number, it's not 20, but let's just say it was you put in 20,000. And let's say for easy number, the company's match end up to $5,000. What I want people to understand is that is a 25% guaranteed return day one.
Yeah.
Which you can't guarantee anywhere, to just take advantage of your company's match. So the first answer is that if your company is matching anything, max it out.
Max it out.
Do whatever you can, get as much as you possibly can, because it's free money that people leave on the table all the time.
And can't you do either a dollar amount that you want to put in or a percentage?
That's correct. Yeah. So most companies, again, it's coming out of your paycheck. And so they don't want to call every employee every single month to say, hey, how much are you going to give this month? Right.
Right.
So you're going to pick a, $500 or $1,000 a month. You're going to pick 5% or 8% of your paycheck. Whatever you want to do. Again, the key is you better budget first, do your personal family budget first, because you're not going to get this money to live off of, and it's not accessible to your 60, right? 59 and a half. I've found though that people spend what they have that lands in their bank account in the first place.
Yeah, for sure.
So most people even notice it over time. So
Absolutely.
You start, if you're not comfortable with it, start off doing $200 a month and go to $500 a month and go to $1,000. And bottom line is squeeze it out as high as you possibly can to get to the max of 19,500. And then there's also other rules, like I haven't even got into. Like there's actually catch-ups you can do. So you can, if you're older than, I think their age is 50.
I want to say 50 as well.
I think it's 50. If you're over age 50, you can throw extra money on top of this that you're allowed to put in. So it's not limited.
So the max goes away after 50.
Well, the maximum is higher.
Higher.
The maximum's
there
higher.
Still
right?
is a max, but it's
okay. And the reason I'm a little vague on the numbers is they do change every year or two. Like they go up over time. You're allowed to save more. The contributions, the companies can change. Like we've seen companies go from 6% to 0% based on last year's performance, right? Or sometimes they never had a match and then they just add it, right? But catch-ups also, those change over time based on the laws of the land. But the cool thing about it is it's a out of sight. So this is the good side, the out of sight, out of mind retirement vehicle to put money that you never put your hands on. So you don't have the ability to spend it, because we know forced savings works.
Absolutely.
Forced savings is, hey, it comes on my paycheck. I can't spend it. It's already over there. I don't even think about it. So it just kind of builds up.
Yep.
Just like forced savings with a mortgage is, a portion of every payment is principal. So it's just kind of, you add up equity over years. And those are two big places for wealth in America, right? What I think the question though, because I think the viewer that asked specifically about what's in a 401k, I think is more of the question. So let's talk about the out of sight, out of mind. That's a bad thing. And then what you should be looking for. Okay. So the bad part is, I alluded to it earlier, but abandoned 401ks is not good, right? Like I know of people that I've done loans for that for sure have worked at a company for 20 years. They had money going to 401k forever. They have other wealth or means, or maybe they were ex-military, so they've got retirement income, so they don't really need to tap into retirement, and they die. And they never ever went and got that big chunk of money, and it's found hopefully at some point in the future by somebody else. But
what happens if nobody finds it?
I don't know that answer. I know that the account stays intact into perpetuity.
Just
until
with
it's claimed.
Some company is just sitting there.
Right. And they're happy to do it because they're making more money than they're giving in interest, right?
Yeah.
Or in the investments, they're getting some sort of management fee on it. And those management fees went up a couple of years ago too. So like it's a real deal. The management fees went up because the compliance of it went up. But bottom line is like, that's a bad thing. So what should you do? A reminder on your calendar semi-annually or quarterly to just look at your balance.
Look at the balance.
It's kind of cool to watch it grow anyways. But if it's not growing, it should like cause pause. If you're contributing every month and the value went down, this would be a good indicator. Like there's a problem. I should probably dive into this further because it is your money for your retirement, right? So that outside out mind is weird. I know a lot of people that literally have no idea what they're invested in. They have no idea how much is in their 401k. They don't know how to. They don't have a login set up to take a look at it.
All very real things.
They're real things and the challenges of the Western world, right?
But that goes to lack of education. If you don't know, you don't know.
Well, yeah, most people sign up for, most people that I've seen. So I've got a company that has a matching 401k, right?
Yeah.
It takes a tremendous amount of pushing and prodding just to get everyone to sign up.
Right.
And then more to get them to max it out, because most people don't max it out, whether it's a budget issue or not, they don't max it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing is like to look at it. And then the fourth thing is, well, have you ever bothered to look at what the returns are and what you're invested in or not?
Correct.
Right?
It's a job.
Yep. So like our 401k is managed by Fidelity. This is not a promotion of Fidelity. It just happens to be who our company uses. I didn't pick it. My company dictated it to me, right? My HR department did. So that's who is like holding it, right? But what happens when a 401k is set up is your company and the HR will pretty much pick out a selection of 5 to 10 investments that you can choose to put your money inside of it. And they are required to give some information around risk tolerance. Like these are considered higher risk investments. These are considered lower risk investments. In some cases, they'll even give like if you invest in this is a investment to retire in 30 years. So this is something that's good for retiring in 30. They'll give like a time frame investments.
Okay.
And quite often or most of the time, they're going to be mutual funds or bond funds or value or growth.
Slow and steady.
Well, you have all of them. There'll be aggressive growth. They'll value.
Right. But for the one you were talking about.
Right. So, but if it's long-term, 30 years away, then that's going to be, if you don't understand it, the further away you are from retirement, most financial planners as a rule will say, hey, take higher risk, right? You got time to recover, right? So you might be in aggressive growth or growth. A lot of people though don't understand that thought process, because getting 8 or 9% for 30 years versus 4 or 5% for 30 years is a huge difference in what's left in retirement, like what that 401k turns into or any investment turns into. So the understanding of, I am naturally a conservative person. I don't know what I'm doing. So what do you think the average person that picks a mutual fund inside of 401k would
probably
say?
The safest one. Safest, yeah.
Which literally could be cash.
Right.
It could literally be you're setting aside money aside in a cash account or setting aside in a income fund, which is yielding 2% a year or something like that. And that's not really what the purpose of the 401k is, I guess, is the best way to say it. So really starting to understand, you gotta take the time to educate yourself a little bit. I'll tell you a little cheat sheet like that I told you to do and that I tell everyone to do is don't try to figure it out. Ask a financial planner what they would do.
Yeah.
So literally, it's a great introduction to any financial planner. They're happy to take a look at it. They're not going to be able to take your 401k away because they can't do it themselves. But it's a door opener for a financial planner to get other business from you.
Sure.
And so they'll happily do a free review for you. Just take your 401k options and products, and sit down with a financial planner and say, hey, here's what it is. I'm 26 years old. What would you recommend? So any good financial planner will go through it all. They'll compare each of the funds to their peers. They'll tell you which ones are the best performing with the lowest risk or some combination, and they'll tell you. Mm-hmm. And so that's what, Ron did for you as an example.
For sure. And then you want to review those, because
annually.
Time goes by fast. Yeah. And so, the need to move things around or be more aggressive in some areas or turn it back to be more moderate, it happens way faster than we can even think about. So it's good to have those reviews because things change.
And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. Again, outside of my mind, that's where it gets you in trouble. So it's a different conversation with a 25-year-old than a 55-year-old.
Totally.
Okay. So let's take this year, for example. Who knew that it was going to be like the highest the market's ever been after this pandemic? And it's probably going to run a little bit further right now because we're about to, we just invested another over $900 billion in stimulus, which is a good thing for, stocks. So what I'm saying is that if you are 58 years old, 55 years old, you've got a 401k you haven't looked at for a long time, and you just had a great run this year. If you were invested in anything decent, you had a great return in 2020 looking back, then reallocation is super important. Okay. So here's what I mean by that. Maybe you took a conserve or you're like, you know what? I'm going to put 50% of my money in this more aggressive choice within my 401k. I'm going to take 50% of it and maybe make it a more moderate or low risk investment. And I made that choice 10 years ago and I've been contributing. Well, it worked. The aggressive shit paid off more. Well, now you're not 50-50. At today's value over those last 10 years, you might literally be 90% aggressive and 10% stable.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So if you're looking down the barrel of retirement in 2 years, reallocation is what I'm talking about. You need to at least level it up again. Like get back to, and again, this is not financial advice. This is like just basic ideas.
General ideas of ways to think about it.
But the idea is that you should be more conservative as you get closer to your retirement date because you can't stand to take a 30% loss the year before you retire.
Oof.
Right? That means you're going to work a few more years. So that reallocation is super important. And on the flip side, maybe in some years, it's been 14 years or more since value and income stocks have done well. Like bond rates have been dropping. When you look at the interest rates for mortgages, the federal funds rate, all these have been dropping. So those income funds are paying lower and lower as far as the fixed income funds, or specifically bonds. So what was a good investment 15 years ago for somebody that's about to retire no longer really is, because what's the point of getting a 0.9% return on your investment?
Right.
And maybe you need to reallocate the other way because maybe you're not on your mark. Maybe you don't have enough money to retire yet. And again, in between 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out, you have to, with your own risk tolerance, have a good discussion with somebody that's not you.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid to ask the questions.
That's
the super important thing to understand is like, it's money that is either working for or against you. And it's usually unmanaged.
Yeah.
It's just over there.
Yeah.
And it becomes substantial, especially if you do this for 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
And what's cool too is, when we set up all of our stuff with our financial advisor, it's you kind of back into the number that you're looking for by figuring out how much you're going to need to retire. And based on, so if you want to retire at 65 and you're going to live until you're 95, if you're living exactly the way you live now at $10,000 a month, then you need X amount of dollars in your retirement account to never work again, from 65 to 95.
Okay.
That was a huge number for us. I was like, well, geez, I mean, a lot of money, but at least we know the number, and then you can back into really what you need to be saving every month. And that can kind of help guide the decisions and help you when you're looking at where you're going in to review it. Where are you at? And how's it performing? Are you on track? Or are you way behind?
Well, that's why you have to have a professional, and it's never too early to start, and it's never too late to start, right?
Yeah.
But it's the embarrassment piece I think so many people get stuck on.
Yeah.
And especially I hope you heard if you're older to well, I never got started, I can't get caught up. Well, shit, there's a catch up. Literally, they let you save more later on because you're closer to retirement, and the government wants to encourage you to have your own money so that you're not as reliant on the government's handouts.
Right. So what about people that don't work for a company that has
401Ks?
Yeah,
because you have to be basically, you got to have a company that provides it, right? So where you typically run into issues is self-employed people or commissioned people. And while you're not going to have a 401k, you can still anyone can go buy a IRA, a Roth IRA, a self-employed pension if you're self-employed pension plan, which is called a SEP. Which is a SEP IRA. So you still have the same options of vehicles. So meaning when I say vehicles, you can still choose a tax deferred account.
Okay.
Traditional IRA. A Roth IRA, so you pay tax on it today and never pay on it again.
And there's maxes on the amounts you can put into those
maxes
yearly,
you
right?
can put into it, and there's maxes in some of the accounts. There's a maximum income that you're allowed to contribute to it at all, as well. So again, there's too many details to just kind of lay every single thing out. But in general, the answer is yes. There's absolutely a investment platform that's available for setting aside retirement money that falls within that same category of rules, where you can for sure put money in that's going to be tax deferred or tax free, that's protected under the IRA laws.
So if I'm a self-employed person and I go to a financial advisor and say, I want to set up a 401k, they'll say,
well, if it depends, like, are you a company? Because then if you have a 401k for your company, everyone has to have access to it, right? So, or if you own that little company or your commission, you would just say, I want to go set up a SEP.
So you would not do it if you were a...
It depends. It's a big cost, big expense, and big benefit to your employees, but it's a big cost and big expense.
But if I don't have employees...
Yeah, so you wouldn't do a 401k. You'd probably do a SEP in that case, is what I would imagine my financial planner would tell me.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's an option?
It's absolutely an option.
It's an option.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, so...
So anyone can have one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It just basically protects you from taxes, right?
Yeah.
It encourages people to set money aside for themselves. The whole reason for it is, it's a ongoing argument. Will Social Security be there for me when I retire, right? Social Security as it is will definitely not be there for us when we retire.
So walk through that. I don't because we're all paying. Everybody's paying into it, right?
So everyone's paying into it, and it's because we're not going to take away the benefits of our grandparents right now. So let me explain this a different way. When Social Security was set up, it was a great idea to take care of people once they retire. But what was flawed in the equation of how much money would be needed by the government to fund it was based on people dying at a younger age.
Got it.
Okay, so in the 30s.
So basically, they're not collecting enough from us.
Well, yeah. So, and there's a couple questions here, and we'll get into politics here, just piss a few people off. But basically, the idea was, hey, you're going to work your whole life, and the government's going to make sure that you are able to retire it later comfortably and not be destitute, right? And so people paid in, and they worked till 50 or 55. But back in the 20s and 30s, you die when you're 60. You die when you're 65.
And how long have 401k accounts been around?
I don't know when it started, so I can't answer that one. But they weren't around in the 40s.
Okay,
30s.
so I'm imagining
this is a bridge. This is to encourage people
because they hadn't set up a vehicle for
there
retirement.
Wasn't the need. So what you got to picture is that the death tables. Like I remember when my youngest daughter was born. She's now 8. So get this one really weirded me out. So I get life insurance on all my kids, not because I want life insurance on my kids. I get it so that I can give it to them later down the road. And if they have a pre-existing condition that might prevent them from being able to get their own life insurance when they're 30 with their own children, they already have it. It can't be taken away. And it's super, super cheap when you're a kid. Like I think I pay for $250,000 or something like that. No, I'm gonna get this exactly right. I think I pay $450 a year for life insurance on each of my kids for a substantial life balance. Again, I don't know what that balance is because I don't want the money. I want my kids to live to 100, right?
Right.
But my point is that when I applied for it, the death tables for a girl born 8 years ago said she's going to live to 107. That's what it was based on. That's what that life insurance was based on, was 107. So what's crazy to think about is, okay, Social Security was set up to the old people will get it for 5 or 10 years and they die. And now the old people are getting it for 40 years.
Right.
So, and we haven't fixed the problem, right? So all people that are working are still contributing it in unless you're trying to evade taxes, which pay your damn share, please, because your grandma needs it. So, we're all paying in, but the problem is, as American politics have shifted and American values have shifted, is there's more people taking from the U.S. government than giving to it. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Like simple business. If you spend more money than you earn, it's going to be a problem, right? So why I say that.
But a lot of that has to do with what you just explained. People are living
or choosing not to work.
Or choosing not to,
Or choosing not to work. able-bodied people that are choosing not to work, or able-bodied people that have lots and lots and lots and lots of kids for the check.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So not popular conversation, but a reality.
Yeah.
Because when you have more people that are alive in the United States that get a check than give taxes, that is a untenable situation. So the reason why I say whether or not Social Security will be there or not I'm 42. So whether it'll be there when I'm 65 or not, it could be. It won't be the same. It's impossible
because
for it to be the same.
people are still going to be working and paying into it.
Yeah, but there will be people working paying into it. But the problem is that if you go back 100 years, 75% of your populace might be between, and by the way, we let kids work 75 years ago. 75% of people might be between ages 15 and 60 still working.
Okay.
So you only have 25% of people that are taking on the Social Security, right? Not real numbers, but you get the point.
Sure.
Now you have 40% of people that are working age that are paying in. So there's still people paying in.
Yeah.
But you've got people that are living for 40 or 50 years on Social Security that are taking a check every day. So what these people are paying in is going to keep paying what's needed for grandma to survive right now.
Right.
But where's the money going to come from for those of us that are paying in when we're in our, like the 20s and 30-year-olds right now?
Well, yeah.
Where's that money coming from? Because we're out spending what we're putting in, right? So what I'm saying is it's not a free lunch. At some point, most people believe the adjustment will be either we're going to have to tax people more today to freaking put more money in there, and we have to do it right away because you can't wait 10 more years and hope it's going to work out, or the benefits will be less.
So
they can't pay as much. Right. So
you won't be able to live off of it.
Right. Which is why the government started incentivizing things like 401K's, like IRAs, like Roth IRAs, like SEPs to say, Miss Citizen, please help us by taking care of yourself. Right.
Please save money.
And what's really cool is that people that get that and have been financially free for a long time, I'm not going to say his name, but one of my mentors, one of my actual coaches today, is retirement age and has been for years and will choose to never take a dollar from Social Security, even though he's entitled it.
So you just don't apply for it?
Just never apply for it.
Got it.
Because he realizes that he did fine and everyone else is effed.
Yeah.
Right? So there will be some of us, I will choose that. I'll probably never take a dollar Social Security ever. As long as my situation doesn't change, there won't be a reason to. But the point is that, like, are you going to cross your fingers and hope to God that the government's going to figure it out for you? Is it
wrong to say take it and invest it somewhere and then be able to, I don't know.
What do you mean take it and invest it somewhere?
Well, like apply for it, get it.
If you need it, you take it. That's what it's for.
And then invest it to then give it to someone else. I don't know. It just seems weird not to take it because it doesn't seem like, I get what you're saying, but it doesn't seem like,
I don't think
there's enough people that would do that.
Well, that's not going to fix the problem is the point.
Right.
Which goes back to the choice today for people that are listening is don't fucking cross your fingers and hope that the government's going to take care of you. Take advantage of things like IRAs and SEPs to gamble on yourself, not gamble on the government being ready.
Well,
because
here's the thing.
Really
all
bad
you need
choices.
to do is go find out how much you need to not work and live happily for 30 years.
And it'll encourage you to start saving.
You'll start saving.
Yeah, or plan on working the rest of your life. I mean, there's a reason for that.
If you get $1,500, $1,600, $2,000 a month in Social Security, you're not living the way you're living right now. Like,
yep.
So
hopefully not. Yep.
I mean, it's not the answer.
Right.
Once you see the number.
A lot of people are choosing that life and choosing to bet on that. Now, I want people also hear like it's not a heartless conversation either. Like I get that there's extenuating circumstances for a lot of families. I get that, right? But one of the things that I try to work on for myself, and I hope people work on for themselves, is if you get a paycheck, and this goes back to the budgeting sector, right? If you get a paycheck and you can't account for every dollar, you should feel a little gross.
Yes, it does.
Right?
It feels really bad.
Like when you get a credit card bill,
I don't even want to look at it.
Right, but not everyone feels that way, right? So the problem is like when you get a credit card bill and you're spending an extra $1,000 and you're like, what the hell did I spend $1,000 on? Like that's the shit that should be going into your 401k to protect yourself for your future. Like that's why the budgeting is so important. And so in another piece of this puzzle is like the current available contribution is $19,500. So don't think that saving $5,000 a year is going to help you retire either, right? Like, you know, I'm putting aside my $400 a month. That's $4,800 a year. Okay, cool. That is a great starting point. That's a great starting point. Good for you for doing it, and don't stop doing that based on what I'm saying. What I'm saying is figure out how to give 500. Beg, borrow, steal, cheat. You know, break down that budget a little bit more to save 450. Because I do think more people will need it than people care to admit.
And I still think this goes back to, it is so hard to imagine being 60 or 65 and living till 95 and not working.
Yep. And that's
it's
why a lot
really
of people
hard
that's why people are going to keep working. A lot of people are going to have to keep working.
But it's hard to connect with that thought process, making it harder to see the benefit of why it's important to save. Because it's so bizarre, right?
Well, and that's that disconnect between the generations too, right? Like my dad's 74, he's still working. Like kudos to him. I asked him why, because he doesn't have to. He said, because I want to contribute.
Yeah.
Like it's not for the money.
But the other thing is, what do you do? What do you do?
Yeah, well,
you know, I mean, you got to have a lot of hobbies to fill.
Well, and
7 days
that's
a
the
week.
truth. Is a lot of people lose their identity and lose their value when they don't work. And I'm not saying put your value in who you are and what you do. What I am saying is like a lot of people sit on the couch and die. They get diabetes and die.
Yeah.
Like it happens, right? Like
absolutely.
It's like you got to keep moving. You got to keep
using your brain, being around people, learning things.
Like do crossword puzzles so you don't get Alzheimer's as fast.
Or Sudoku.
Or Sudoku, right?
I did so many over the break. I was like, man, I could still do it. I used to do them in college all the time. And
my mom still does the crossword, the New York Times crossword puzzle.
I can't do crossword puzzles
every single day. She's freaking smart.
That's really good.
She
probably does them in pen too.
She does. I need to ask her. I don't want to lie. I imagine she does because she takes it very seriously.
She probably does.
But you know, that's the idea is like if you're listening to this, you're probably like a self-help person. If I were to give a message, it's like, please stop relying on other people, and please don't hope for somebody else to figure out for you.
Yeah.
And like. I've become over time a very curious person, curious about my surroundings, curious about politics, curious about money, curious, because I think we were hand-fed, spoon-fed information that's just not real.
That's where I struggle with politics.
Disinformation out there too,
you know, it's one of those, I don't know if I'm just not mentally prepared to like start uncovering the things that I would find when digging into politics. And my other thing too is I really struggle. I think this comes from because we do a lot of video. We do the podcast. I understand how much is edited and sent, you know, like you can see
the sound bites.
Yeah. And the idea of a sound bite or a piece of micro content is to be enticing, to excite people, to drive them to listen to the podcast.
Right.
There's no context.
Yeah. To what's being said. That's what it's missing. And so, you know, you start, I mean, you know, it's hard to know where to listen, where to. Yeah. Well, and that's why I was just be curious. Like don't, like one thing that I believe very, very deeply is that if I'm relying on somebody else to make me happy, I'm gonna be disappointed a lot.
I mean,
right. So if you're relying on your government to really take care of you, you're going to be disappointed at some point in your life, right? And it's just because the equation is not a good equation. We're creating way more debt than we're creating of value or money, right? We're outspinning our role. Our budget is broken. We are definitely using a credit card as a country, right?
Yeah.
So what people need to listen to when it comes to politics, and this is the hardest thing to say, but it's a platform I really believe in, is like you got to stop voting for what's in your best interest, and you got to start voting for what's in your country's best interest, right?
Yeah, because a lot of people say, you know, I want to make it better for my kids, you know, and their kids and the future generations, and so that's where that thought process comes in. It's like you got to think really what's going to set up the best for them.
Yep. And so, you know, people will ask me, like, am I a Democratic Republican? It's like, yeah, I'm probably the most central Republican you're ever going to find because I'm fiscally responsible. So I'm a Republican from that perspective, but socially I'm kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care who you marry. I just don't
either. Yeah.
You know, but But that's not a popular view. And God forbid I should ever run as a Republican. I can't ever say that ever, right? I can't, as a Democrat, God forbid,
Scratch
like I say,
that. Edit.
right. Well, no, it's fine. And God forbid I ever run for office as a Democrat because I'm saying like cut back some programs. Like,
Right.
but the truth of the matter is like, that's not being said enough and loud enough that at some point you've got to balance the books. If you don't balance the books, it's going to break. And so when it comes to money and it comes to 50 years from now, if we don't balance the books, our country's in for a freaking whirlwind. And the way you can protect yourself and the way you can protect your family is to not freaking rely on them.
Yeah.
And that means making hard choices now with your own personal money. It's hard choices now with your savings. It's being curious about a subject that you might not give a shit about,
Right.
but will pay dividends for you in the future and protect your family. So, that generational gap. I was saying my dad works as age of 74. And you've got kids today, 20-year-olds that will say, well, shame on him. Like, you should live for the moment, not for retirement, right? They're saying that screw the job, go travel the world. That sounds really fun, but that means that my ass is going to be paying for you, right?
Yes.
Like when you have no money and you break your leg on Mount Everest and you come back, they're still going to set your leg. My insurance just went up because you don't have any. And that's the problem.
That raised a question for me. So if you have a 401k and you get disabled and are unable to continue working, does that change anything from the rules of the 401k and when you can access it?
I do think that there's a way to access it if it's a major medical. I do believe that's the case. I don't know that to be true. I am going to invite
because if you don't have long-term insurance,
you technically have some Social Security disability when you're less than 65 if you have a major issue, right? So you have some money that you can get from the government for being disabled or unemployed.
Not from your company though,
right? No, not unless you pay for it. Like our company, you can pay into a disability insurance, right?
Which also goes away if you don't work for them. So if I paid into it as an employee of Legacy Mutual and I'm no longer working with Legacy Mutual, that is gone.
Yeah, it's a month by month thing. It's a year by year thing. Yeah. And most disability insurance the whole point of it is to bridge the gap from your age till retirement age. So disability insurance is not forever. It gets you to
so when you can access
so that you can access Social Security. It's like that bridge, which I find disability insurance to be extremely, extremely important. Extremely important to have.
Yeah.
Especially if you built this perfect budget based on X, and if you don't have any inflow, what happens?
Right.
So, it's expensive though, because why? It's very expensive, and and the reason it's expensive is, guess what? People use it. Mm-hmm. Like you can't pick when the car hits you. You can't pick when you fall off the ladder. Like that shit happens, right? So it's just one of those insurance I think is super important to have.
Yeah.
Especially in the formative years where you're doing well, so you have somebody to protect. But you're not well enough that you could self-insure. Like during that period of time, having disability insurance is super important. No different than long-term care insurance.
Yeah.
Long-term care insurance is something people talk about a lot, which is, you're old and gray. Hopefully, not everyone's old and gray when they need it. But you and your spouse are doing well, and then your spouse gets Parkinson's, and they're degenerating pretty fast, and they need full-time care. Well, that is super expensive now. It's getting more expensive every year that goes by. And that can bleed a retirement for the living spouse to nothing. Yeah. Because you're paying for that. So when should people have long-term care insurance? Well, you shouldn't have it at all if you have nothing in the bank, because that's what Medicaid is for. Medicaid will pay for you to be at the nursing home, right? But if you have something to protect or you want to pass stuff to your family, or you have another spouse that needs the freaking money, like they're hopefully going to live 10 years longer than you or whatever, then having long-term care insurance to protect that wealth is important. And then at the very end of the spectrum, which is where, you have more money than you're ever going to spend in your life, don't have long-term care insurance because you can self-insure. You can self-insure. It's not going to impact you. So, thinking through things like disability insurance and long-term care insurance, things like that are aspects to it. But it's the overall picture of if I were to say about being curious with your company, like the next time you have an enrollment period again, like sit in on it. A lot of people,
they're very informative.
They're right. Like it's funny to me, like how many people will stay at the same company for 10 years and they went once, so they don't show up at the enrollment periods anymore. They just,
they change.
They do change, but people miss them. It's like, okay, what does this mean when my coverage changes? What does this mean with this higher deductible, with the lower cost?
Yeah.
People go to the lower cost, but do I have the ability to write that check with a bigger deductible? There's new eye insurance or ear insurance or disability insurance.
We have ear insurance?
Right. Auditory, what is it called? I think it's auditory.
Oh, you're serious? I think we just have eyes. I don't know. I didn't sit in on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have both.
But I didn't want to change anything.
Yeah, but disability insurance, all that stuff's in there.
I chose intentionally not to sit in on it because we decided nothing was changing. We did look at it.
That's fine. Hey, as long as you made a choice, at least you thought about it. Most people don't give it a second thought.
I made an intentional choice.
Yep.
Very different. Okay, so last thing on the 401Ks.
Mm-hmm.
So, if your 401k is connected to your company because you're an employee, when does it go with you if you leave, and when doesn't it?
Good question.
What does that look like?
Yeah, so your 401k is your money. So the company can't keep it from you. Right now, what they can do is there can be a vesting schedule.
Okay.
So meaning that their portion of contributions, you have to be there a certain number of years to fully vest.
So
they might say, it's a retention tool, right? So they might say, hey, listen, I'll give you a great match, 6% match.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're getting an extra $9,000 a year for 4, 5, 6 years. But if you leave in year 1, I'm going to take it all back. If you leave in year 3, I'll take 25% back. Or 75% back. If you're there for 6 years, you're fully vested. So when you leave, if you retire or if you just move companies, you get your whole 401k plus the match. So, but they can't keep your money from you.
So what you put in,
you can
always
leave whenever. Yeah.
Interesting.
That was your earnings.
I did not know that.
That was your earnings.
Well, I've always thought that was weird.
Well, they can't keep that from you. They can keep their match, right?
That's super interesting.
That's what the vesting schedule's for, right?
And is the vesting schedule set by the company?
Yep.
Okay. So
and it's a retention tool.
Okay.
It's it's smart, right? So,
for sure. Yeah.
People that are...
That's a big investment. I mean...
Well, especially once you're in a couple of years and it's like, well, if I stick it out for 2 more years, I'm fully vested, and that happens to be a year that they get in a fight with their boss. Mm-hmm. It's like, do I really hate my boss so much I'm going to leave $30,000 on the table?
Absolutely.
Right? Like maybe I should just stick it out for 2 more years.
Just stick it out. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of the thought process behind it. That's a good question, by the way. So what I would say is that especially an abandoned 401k, you like homework, go find that shit and move it over to a managed account. Like that's the easiest low-hanging fruit to get an introduction to a financial planner. Like,
what do you mean? Say that again.
What I mean is like you left Maryland, moved to Texas. You had a 401k, your old company that has $100,000 in it.
I see.
Don't leave it there. Like bring it with you, find a local financial planner and say, hey, Bob, I need you to take over my 401k. While you're at it, will you give me some advice on reallocation?
Yeah.
How do you like the investments choices that are in this? Should we move this over to a Roth IRA? Because you can actually take, with current laws, which is super interesting. If you don't know this, talk to your financial planner about this. You can currently take a traditional IRA right now and do a rollback and basically make it a Roth IRA. Now you're going to pay taxes on whatever you're moving back over. But if you're pretty bullish about, I'm going to keep on saving, this money's going to be worth a lot and more in 30 years, make it a Roth immediately. Like just bite the bullet. Understand what the tax consequence is.
Yeah.
Today.
What are the penalties and taxes? Like, are they pretty steep?
No, that's not a penalty. A penalty would be if you withdraw
I switched gears. So on your 401k, so if you take it out or you access
10% penalty and pay the taxes at your income.
And the penalty is paid when?
The company will withhold 10%.
Okay.
So a penalty is 10% withholding. So if you have $100,000 that's in there and you say, screw it, I don't like the market anymore, give me my cash, send me a check, they'll send you 90.
Okay.
And then now they sent you 90, but you're going to be taxed on all of it, right? Because you've never paid taxes on any of the money ever. So if you're in the 35% tax bracket, you now owe a $35,000 check too. Rough numbers. I'm not CPA.
Okay, so it's based on your tax bracket.
It's your tax bracket. It's real income, right?
Okay.
And so, and you just increased your income tax bracket.
Oh crap! Yeah.
If you made $100,000 as a family this year, and then you do $100,000 withdrawal from your 401k in the same year, your tax bracket's now based on $200,000, not $100,000.
So, are there times that it does make sense? Have you seen any to take it out or
no?
No. And are there any other non-penalty?
By the way, I just replayed what I just said in my head in error. You pay it at your real income tax rate. You don't. It's not plus the 100,000. Just so you know. So if your tax bracket is based on 100,000, you do a withdrawal. It's whatever the income tax rate is at that time.
Okay.
It's not an added burden. So I apologize for that. I was just like, no, that didn't sound right. But your question was, is there ever a time to withdraw it? Okay. So there's always an exception to every rule. Sure. The purpose of a 401k is to never touch it ever till you're old.
Sure.
That's right. So start there. Accessing it for a house is a arguable reason to take some money
unless
out.
You're a first-time home buyer.
Well, if you're a first-time home buyer, then you're able to get some. That's what I'm saying. That's a reason to take some money out.
Because there's no penalty, but you are taxed.
You're taxed on the withdrawal because you've not been taxed before, but you're not going to get that 10% assessment either. So if it's the difference of you having a house for your family and children and not, I could see the argument there. Although I'd also say that just remember, you can borrow for a house, you can't borrow for retirement.
Right.
So if there's a different way to do less money down or get a down payment assistance program and keep your money working for you.
Or get a gift.
Or get a gift. Or, something like that.
Okay.
I would say there's lots of better options than taking money from 401k. So the only other option is, honest to God, you lost your job. You've been unemployed now with your self-employed business for 6 months. The pandemic looks like it's going to go on for another year. You don't have any prospects at all to get in a job.
Okay.
Cash is cash.
Okay.
You need to live. So
it really does sound like a very, very last resort.
It is your last resort.
Okay.
Yeah, because here's the thing. There is no last resort for your retirement money. Mm-hmm. Like, oops, I didn't save enough. There's not like a panic button you can pull, right? There is a panic button you can pull at age 40 when you can access your 401k because you lost your job. So you want to leave that as a last resort.
Sure.
Because if that money is not there to take care of you in your retirement, good luck. Now you're going to have to make some really horrible choices. Like, I've got a really wonderful aunt, really wonderful human being. Like, she's always loved me and taken great care of me, right? And like many Americans, she definitely lives on Social Security and Medicaid and whatever my dad and I can help out with, right? And that just is what it is, right? It's what a lot of Americans are going to deal with, right? But she did have to move out of her house that she was in for 75 years because couldn't keep up with it, upkeep, taxes, insurance. Yeah. It just, even though it was free and clear, couldn't keep up with it. And had to go to a housing situation that is subsidized government housing. Mm-hmm. And based on the little bit of Social Security, because most of her jobs over the years were part-time or commission jobs or like just on the side jobs where she wasn't paying taxes in, the Social Security amount is less.
Yeah.
So it's just harder, right?
Yeah.
So again, that's the whole point is that this is why you got to focus on it as early as you can, but don't give up, because more starting at age 55 to 60 is better than I give up, I'm 55, I'm never gonna be able to save enough. Having something is a big deal.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I would also say this is a good message for everyone that, right now I think that there's a bigger disparity between the haves and have-nots as a result of 2020, right? There's a very clear line of demarcation of the companies and businesses and industries that did really, really, really well.
Right.
And the companies and businesses and industries that really suffered, right? And so what I would challenge everyone in this new year in 2021, 2022 is be more generous, right? Like if you can find a cause, like shoot, all the food banks nationwide are empty, right? So if you did really, really, really well last year, please write a check to a food bank, but
you know what schools are doing too, and I really find this to be very, very generous. The lunches and breakfast have been free since they went back.
Well, for your district,
for our district, for Northeast, which is really very nice. But it's the money's coming from somewhere.
Well, we're going to raise the taxes on you.
So
that's what property taxes are for. Which is fine though. I think it's a great program, right? Again, it's not sustainable. You can't just keep on giving everyone free food.
Right. Yeah, but, I'm sure it will extend into the next.
Things like that matter, and so just be more generous maybe in 2021 if you're doing really well. Like, don't just like keep it all for yourself. And this goes back to that rule of 30, 30, 10, 30 and find something to be passionate about. And if you don't have something, that's great. You will eventually have something that you're passionate about because somebody's gonna get sick or die around you. Mm-hmm. And don't wait for that to be the reason for you to get behind something.
Yeah.
Go find somebody else's cause. I just, without too many details, like I'm very fortunate right this second. My parents and my kids and my wife and I are all healthy. Please pray to God. So I literally went to my team like a couple days ago and I said, hey, raise your hand if you have a really super passionate cause that you're part of, and found out who they were. And I gave money to all their charities, right?
Yeah,
like it was,
incredible.
for me, it's important to do that, right?
It's incredible. Yeah.
But most faiths, regardless what faith you are, say you've got to start with taking care of yours first, you and your own and your extended family first, and then take care of somebody else. And
put your oxygen back. Yeah, you got to put your oxygen on first.
Yeah, and exactly right. And the reason why you've got to do that is that take care of your family, extended family first, because if you're not, the rest of us have to. That means all the rest of us families have to take care of your family because you didn't take care of yours first. So it starts with a budget. It starts with a strategy. It starts with savings. It starts with a little bit more education than you have, being a little bit more curious every year, just being better, not perfect, being better than last year. Fall forward.
But awesome. This is super helpful. This is really, really helpful. I want to say, if you're listening to this and you've been listening to our episodes and anything that we have said or talked about has encouraged you to start a savings account, hire a financial planner, do something different with your money life, please let us know. I want to I'm very interested. I want to know if we're helping. So, the email address is sigmansense@gmail.com. So make sure you're sending notes there, and subscribe, share, tell your friends, and save your money.
Save your money. Happy New Year's, guys. Here we are in 2021. Let's do it all over again.
All right.
Cheers. Be better this year. Bye, guys.